What would you do if your husband handed you a stack of legal papers, coldly stating he can no longer trust you? How did things spiral so far that the man you once loved now stands across from you, emotionless, with a lawyer's number in hand? This is the story of how refusing to choose between my husband and my best friend led to the moment my world was turned upside down. The morning sun filtered through our kitchen windows as I mechanically poured cereal into bowls for Milo and Lily. 7 years of marriage, and this felt like our routine had become a prison sentence. Callum sat at the breakfast table, already dressed in his Navy engineer's polo, scrolling through work emails on his phone, while our 4-year-old daughter tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, look at my drawing." Lily held up a crayon masterpiece of stick figures. "That's nice, sweetheart," Callum mumbled without looking up, his thumb swiping across the screen. I felt that familiar knot of frustration tighten in my chest. When was the last time he really looked at me? When was the last time we had a conversation that didn't revolve around schedules, bills, or the kids' activities? "Milo, eat your breakfast or you'll be late for school," I said to our 7-year-old, who sat quietly, pushing Cheerios around his bowl. He'd been unusually withdrawn lately, probably sensing the tension between his father and me. My phone buzzed on the counter, a text from Rowan. "Good morning, beautiful. Hope your day is better than yesterday." A smile tugged at my lips as I read it. At least someone noticed when I was having a rough time. At least someone cared enough to check on me. "Who's texting you this early?" Callum asked, finally glancing up from his phone. "Just Rowan, saying good morning." I slipped my phone into my pocket, but not before typing back, "You always know how to make me smile." Callum's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Doesn't he have a job to get to?" "He's freelance, Cal. He sets his own hours." I grabbed the milk carton and put it back in the fridge with more force than necessary. Some people are lucky enough to have that flexibility. "Must be nice," he said dryly, returning to his phone. The silence stretched between us, broken only by the sound of Lily's spoon clinking against her bowl and Milo's quiet chewing. This wasn't how I'd imagined marriage would be. Where was the romance? The excitement? The feeling that someone actually wanted to be with me? My phone buzzed again. Another text from Rowan. "Want to grab coffee later? I have something funny to tell you about my client meeting yesterday." I glanced at Callum, still absorbed in his work emails, then typed back under the table. "Yes, I need a good laugh today." "Arlena." Callum's voice was sharp. I looked up, my heart skipping a beat. Had he seen me texting? "Can you pick up my dry cleaning today? I need that blue shirt for the presentation tomorrow." Relief washed over me. "Of course." He stood up, grabbing his coffee mug and laptop bag. "I'll be late tonight. We're running tests on the new system." Again. The word came out more bitter than I intended. "It's my job, Arlena. It pays for this house, the kids' school, your car. I know what it pays for." I turned away, focusing on wiping down the already clean counter. I just thought maybe we could have dinner together for once this week. Maybe this weekend. Maybe. Always maybe with him. Never a definite yes. Never any real effort to prioritize our family time. After Callum left, I got the kids ready for school, my mind wandering to my coffee date with Rowan. He always made time for me. He listened when I talked, laughed at my jokes, made me feel like I was worth paying attention to. My mother called as I was driving back from drop-off. "Hi, Mom." "How are you doing, honey? You sounded stressed when we talked yesterday." I sighed, pulling into our driveway. "Same old stuff. Callum's working late again tonight. Sometimes I feel like I'm married to a ghost." "That man needs to appreciate what he has," Mom said firmly. "You're a wonderful wife and mother, Arlena. If he can't see that, it's his loss." "Thanks, Mom. I'm meeting Rowan for coffee this afternoon. At least someone wants to spend time with me." "Good for you. You deserve to have friends who value your company. Don't let Callum make you feel guilty for having a social life." After we hung up, I sat in my car for a moment, staring at our house. When had it started feeling like a place I was stuck rather than a home I loved? My phone buzzed with another text from Rowan. "Can't wait to see you. You're the best part of my day." I smiled, feeling that warm flutter in my chest that had been missing from my interactions with Callum for months. Was it wrong to enjoy the attention? Was it wrong to want to feel desired and appreciated? I told myself it was just friendship. Rowan and I had been close since college. He understood me in ways that Callum never seemed to try to understand. There was nothing wrong with having a best friend who actually cared about my feelings. But as I walked into the empty house, I couldn't shake the memory of Callum's tight jaw when he'd asked about the morning text. There was something in his expression I couldn't quite read. Hurt, maybe, or suspicion. I pushed the thought away. If Callum was suspicious, maybe he should try being a better husband instead of working all the time and ignoring his family. My phone rang. Rowan's name appeared on the screen, and I answered immediately. "Hey, you." "Hey, yourself. I was thinking about our coffee date, and I realized I never asked how you're really doing. You seemed a little down yesterday." I sank onto the couch, grateful for his concern. Just the usual stuff with Callum. He's so distant lately. Sometimes I wonder if he even remembers he has a wife. "His loss," Rowan said, his voice warm. "Any man who doesn't appreciate you is an idiot." "You always know exactly what to say." "Because I pay attention. That's what friends do." "Friends." Right, that's what we were. Friends who happened to text each other every day, who made time for each other, who actually cared about each other's feelings. "I should go get ready for our coffee date," I said. "Can't wait. See you soon, Arlena." As I hung up and headed upstairs to change clothes, I caught myself in the hallway mirror. When was the last time I'd gotten dressed up for Callum? When was the last time I'd looked forward to seeing him the way I looked forward to seeing Rowan? I pushed the thought away and focused on picking out an outfit that would make me feel confident and attractive. There was nothing wrong with wanting to look nice for a friend. The weekend brought our monthly group brunch at Riverside Cafe, a tradition that had started back in college and somehow survived marriages, divorces, and career changes. I'd been looking forward to it all week, especially since Callum had agreed to come this time. "Are you sure you want to go?" he asked as we got ready Saturday morning. "You know how these things usually end up." "What's that supposed to mean?" He shrugged, adjusting his collar in the bathroom mirror. "Just seems like you always come home in a weird mood after hanging out with that crowd." "That crowd includes some of my oldest friends, Cal." "I know, I just meant—" He stopped himself, shaking his head. "Never mind, let's just go." The cafe was buzzing with its usual weekend energy when we arrived. I spotted our group immediately. Rowan's laugh carried across the room, drawing attention from other tables. He had that effect on people, that magnetic charisma that made everyone want to be near him. "Arlena!" He stood up as we approached, pulling me into a hug that lasted just a beat too long. "You look amazing." I felt myself flush with pleasure. "Thanks. You remember Callum?" "Of course. Good to see you, man." Rowan extended his hand, and Callum shook it with a polite but cool smile. The rest of our group, Sarah, Mike, and Jessica, welcomed us warmly. These were people I'd known for over a decade, but somehow I felt like Callum never quite fit in with them. He was too serious, too focused on practical things, while they were all creative types who valued spontaneity and emotional expression. "So, Arlena," Sarah said as we settled into our seats, "how's married life treating you?" I glanced at Callum, who was studying his menu intently. "Oh, same old routine. Work, kids, household stuff." "Sounds thrilling," Mike said with a grin. "Not all of us can be free spirits," Callum said mildly, not looking up from his menu. An awkward silence fell over the table. Rowan jumped in smoothly. "Arlena's been telling me about some of the projects she's working on at the office. She's way more creative than she gives herself credit for." "Really?" Jessica leaned forward with interest. "What kind of projects?" I felt a warm glow as I described the marketing materials I'd been designing for our small company. It wasn't glamorous work, but Rowan had helped me see the artistic elements in it, had encouraged me to push for more creative freedom. "That sounds really cool," Sarah said. "Your husband must be proud." All eyes turned to Callum. He looked up from his menu, caught off guard. "Oh, yes, absolutely. Arlena's very talented." The response felt automatic, polite, but not enthusiastic. I found myself comparing it to Rowan's genuine excitement about my work. "She really is," Rowan said, his eyes meeting mine across the table. "I keep telling her she should freelance. She has such a unique perspective." "Freelancing doesn't exactly pay the bills," Callum said, a slight edge to his voice. "Not everything is about money," I said before I could stop myself. "Easy to say when someone else is paying the mortgage." The table fell silent again. I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger. "I think it's great that Arlena has such a supportive friend," Jessica said quickly, trying to smooth over the tension. "We've always been close," Rowan said, his hand briefly touching my arm. "Since college, I probably know her better than anyone." I saw Callum's grip tighten on his water glass, but he said nothing. The conversation moved on to other topics, but I found myself hyper-aware of every interaction between Rowan and me. The way he laughed at my jokes, the way he remembered details about things I'd told him weeks ago, the way he made me feel interesting and valued. When I excused myself to go to the restroom, my sister Penny followed me. "Arlena, can we talk for a minute?" "What's up?" She glanced around the small bathroom, making sure we were alone. "Is everything okay with you and Callum?" "What do you mean?" "I mean the tension at that table was thick enough to cut with a knife, and the way you and Rowan were looking at each other." She trailed off, studying my face. "Rowan and I are friends, Penny. Best friends. Is there something wrong with having someone in my life who actually appreciates me?" "Of course not. It's just, you're married, Arlena, and from where I was sitting, it looked like more than friendship." I felt a surge of defensive anger. "You're being ridiculous. And honestly, it sounds like you're jealous that I have a friend who actually cares about my happiness." "I'm not jealous. I'm concerned. About you, about Callum, about the kids. The kids are fine, and if Callum has a problem with my friendships, maybe he should try being a better husband instead of working all the time." Penny's expression softened. "Arlena, I love you, but I think you need to be really honest with yourself about what's happening here." I turned away from her, checking my lipstick in the mirror. Nothing is happening except that I have a friend who values me. If that threatens people, that's their problem, not mine. When we returned to the table, I noticed Callum watching me closely. Had he and Rowan been talking while I was gone? The atmosphere felt even more strained than before. As we were getting ready to leave, Mike pulled out his phone. "Let's get a group photo." We all squeezed together, and somehow I ended up next to Rowan. His arm went around my waist, pulling me close, and I found myself leaning into him naturally. For just a moment, I forgot about everything else. The tension with Callum, Penny's concerns, the complications of my life. I just felt happy and appreciated. "Perfect," Mike said, snapping several shots. "I'll post these later." In the parking lot, Callum was quiet as we walked to our car. "That was nice," I said, trying to break the silence. "Was it? What's that supposed to mean?" He unlocked the car doors but didn't get in. "Arlena, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you happy in our marriage?" The question caught me off guard. "What kind of question is that?" "A simple one. Are you happy?" I stared at him, this man I'd married 7 years ago, this father of my children who suddenly felt like a stranger. "I don't know how to answer that." "I think you just did." We drove home in silence, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. When we got home, Callum went straight to his home office and closed the door. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with a notification. Mike had posted the group photo on social media. I opened it and felt my breath catch. There it was, captured for everyone to see. Me leaning into Rowan, both of us smiling, looking completely comfortable and natural together. We look like, well, we looked like more than friends. I quickly scrolled through the comments. Most were harmless. Great seeing everyone, and miss you guys. But one from Sarah made my stomach flip. Arlena and Rowan, you two are so cute together. I deleted the comment immediately, but it was too late. Callum had social media too. Had he seen it? As if in answer to my question, I heard his office door open. He appeared in the living room doorway, his phone in his hand. Interesting photo, he said quietly. It's just a group picture, Cal. Is it? I stood up from the couch, suddenly feeling defensive. Yes, it is, and I don't appreciate the accusation in your tone. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just observing that my wife looks more comfortable with her best friend than she does with me. Maybe because he doesn't interrogate me about every interaction I have with other people. And maybe because you're having an emotional affair with him. The words hung in the air between us, like a bomb that had just exploded. I felt my heart racing, my palms sweating. That's ridiculous, I said, but my voice sounded shaky even to my own ears. Is it? When was the last time you smiled at me the way you smiled at him today? When was the last time you texted me good morning, or asked about my day, or seemed genuinely happy to see me? I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came, because he was right, and we both knew it. I'm going to bed, he said finally. We can talk about this tomorrow when we've both had time to think. As he walked away, I sank back onto the couch, my mind racing. Was I having an emotional affair? Was what I felt for Rowan more than friendship? My phone buzzed. A text from Rowan. Great seeing you today. You looked beautiful as always. Sweet dreams. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the keyboard. This was my chance to set boundaries, to step back, to focus on my marriage. Instead, I typed back, you too. Thanks for always making me feel special. As I hit send, I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just being a good friend. If Callum couldn't handle that, it was his problem, not mine. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. The following Tuesday evening, I found myself standing outside Rowan's apartment building, my heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with climbing 3 flights of stairs. He'd invited me over to help him with a project presentation, just as friends, I'd told myself, just like old times. You made it! Rowan opened the door, with that warm smile that always made me feel like the most important person in the world. His apartment was exactly what I'd expected, modern, artistic, with exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. This place is amazing, I said, looking around. So different from suburban life. Want some wine? I picked up that Pinot Grigio you mentioned liking. The fact that he'd remembered my wine preference from a casual conversation weeks ago made my chest flutter. When was the last time Callum had remembered something like that? That sounds perfect. We settled on his leather couch with our wine and his laptop, ostensibly to work on his presentation. But somehow we ended up talking instead, really talking, the way Callum and I used to before kids and mortgages and the daily grind of life wore us down. I've been thinking about what you said at brunch, Rowan said, his dark eyes serious, about feeling unappreciated. You don't need to worry about my problems. But I do worry. You deserve to be with someone who sees how incredible you are. The wine was making me feel warm and bold. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd gotten together in college instead of just being friends. I wonder that too, he said quietly, moving closer to me on the couch. Actually, I wonder about it a lot. The air between us felt charged, electric. I knew I should leave, should go home to my husband and children, should stop this before it went too far. Instead, I found myself leaning closer. Rowan, I know you're married, but I can't stop thinking about you, Arlena, about us. His hand reached up to touch my face, and I didn't pull away. For a moment, we just looked at each other, years of friendship and growing attraction hanging between us. Then he kissed me. It was soft at first, tentative, giving me a chance to stop it. But I didn't want to stop it. I wanted to feel desired, wanted, appreciated. I kissed him back, and suddenly we were holding each other, months of emotional intimacy spilling over into something physical. When we finally broke apart, I was breathing hard, my heart racing. I should go, I whispered, but I made no move to leave. Should you? I'm married, Rowan. I have kids. I know, and I'm not asking you to leave them. I'm just asking you to be honest about what you want. What did I want? I wanted to feel alive again. I wanted someone to choose me, to prioritize me, to make me feel like I mattered. This is complicated, I said. The best things usually are. I stayed for another hour, talking and kissing and pretending that what we were doing was somehow innocent. When I finally left, my lips were swollen and my mind was spinning. The drive home felt surreal. I kept touching my lips, remembering the way Rowan had kissed me, the way he'd looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. Callum was in bed when I got home, reading on his tablet. He looked up when I entered our bedroom. How was your study session? Fine. Good. We got a lot done on his presentation. That's nice. Did you eat dinner? I saved you a plate. The casual kindness in his voice made guilt twist in my stomach. I'm not really hungry. I think I'll just shower and go to bed. In the shower, I tried to wash away the scent of Rowan's cologne, the memory of his hands in my hair, but I couldn't wash away the way he'd made me feel, desired, beautiful, worth fighting for. Over the next few days, Rowan and I texted constantly. Good morning messages, throughout the day check-ins, late-night conversations that went on for hours. I found myself hiding my phone, deleting message threads, making excuses to step away and respond to him. You're distracted lately, Callum said one evening as we cleaned up after dinner. Just tired. Work's been busy. Maybe you should take a break from some of your evening activities. You've been out a lot lately. I'm allowed to have friends, Callum. Of course you are. I just think maybe what? Maybe I should sit at home every night waiting for you to finish working. Maybe I should give up the one relationship in my life that actually makes me feel valued. He stared at me, clearly taken aback by my vehemence. I didn't realize you felt so strongly about this. There's a lot you don't realize. That night, I lay awake thinking about Rowan's kiss, about the way he'd said my name, about the possibility of a different life. When Callum reached for me in his sleep, his arm settling around my waist in the familiar gesture of a 7-year marriage, I felt like I was betraying both of them. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Rowan. Can't sleep. Thinking about you. I carefully extracted myself from Callum's arm and tiptoed to the bathroom to respond. Me too. This is crazy. Crazy good or crazy bad? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. I don't know yet. Want to find out? The next morning, Callum was quiet over breakfast. The kids chatted about their upcoming school events, but he seemed lost in thought. Everything okay? I asked. I checked our phone bill last night, he said without looking up from his coffee. You've been talking to Rowan a lot. Late-night calls, sometimes for hours. My blood ran cold. We're friends. Friends talk. At midnight for 2 hours? Sometimes we lose track of time. Arlena. His voice was gentle but firm. What's going on? I felt cornered, defensive. Nothing is going on. I'm sorry if having a friend who actually wants to talk to me is somehow threatening to you. It's not threatening. It's concerning. You're my wife. We should be talking to each other for hours, not you and him. Maybe if you were ever home and not buried in work, don't turn this around on me. This isn't about my work schedule. This is about appropriate boundaries. Boundaries? I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. You want to talk about boundaries? How about the boundary of a husband who ignores his wife for months and then gets upset when she finds companionship elsewhere? Companionship? His voice rose slightly. Then he glanced at the kids and lowered it again. Is that what we're calling it? Yes, that's what we're calling it, because that's what it is. But even as I said the words, I knew they weren't entirely true. What Rowan and I had was more than companionship, and we both knew it. Callum studied my face for a long moment. I think we need to talk tonight, really talk, about us, about what's happening to our marriage. Fine, I said, but I was already thinking about texting Rowan, about seeking comfort from the one person who understood me. As Callum left for work, he paused at the door. Arlena, I love you. I hope you know that. The words should have warmed my heart. Instead, they made me feel trapped. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, staring at my phone. I had a choice to make. I could delete Rowan's number, focus on my marriage, try to rebuild what Callum and I once had. Or I could text Rowan back and see where this path led. My fingers moved across the keyboard before my brain could stop them. Want to meet for coffee today? I need to see you. His response came immediately. Always. You know I'm here for you. As I got ready to meet him, I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just spending time with a friend who cared about me. If Callum couldn't handle that, maybe the problem wasn't with my friendship. Maybe the problem was with my marriage. The dinner party had seemed like such a good idea when I'd planned it 2 weeks earlier. Both families together, a chance to show everyone that, despite the tension, we were still a united front. Now, as I watched my mother-in-law Margaret quietly help Lily with her dinner while shooting disapproving glances in my direction, I wondered what I'd been thinking. "This roast is delicious, honey," my mother Denise said loudly, as if volume could somehow fill the awkward silences that kept falling over the table. "Doesn't Arlena make the most wonderful meals, Callum?" Callum looked up from his plate where he'd been pushing food around more than eating. "Yes, it's very good." His brother Ethan cleared his throat. "So, Callum, how's the new project at work going?" "Fine. Busy, but fine." The conversation felt stilted, artificial. Even the kids seemed to sense the tension. Milo was unusually quiet, and Lily kept looking back and forth between her father and me with worried eyes. "Arlena's been keeping busy too," Denise continued, clearly trying to steer the conversation toward safer ground. "Haven't you, sweetheart? With your work and your social activities." I felt Callum's eyes on me and took a larger sip of wine than I'd intended. "Just the usual stuff. Work, friends, you know." "That friend of yours," Margaret said quietly, her voice carrying just enough disapproval to make everyone at the table tense. "Rowan, isn't it? You've been spending quite a bit of time with him lately." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I felt my face flush, partly from the wine and partly from anger. "Rowan is my best friend from college," I said carefully. "We've always been close." "Of course you have," Denise jumped in, shooting Margaret a sharp look. "There's nothing wrong with maintaining friendships. In fact, I think it's healthy for married couples to have their own interests and relationships." "Some relationships," Margaret said, her tone measured but pointed. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, my voice sharper than I'd intended. "Mom," Callum warned quietly. "I just think," Margaret continued, "that when you're married, especially with children, certain friendships require boundaries." The word hit me like a slap. Boundaries. The same word Callum had been using lately. The same concept everyone seemed determined to shove down my throat. "Boundaries?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You know what's funny about boundaries? Everyone wants to talk about my boundaries with my friends, but no one wants to talk about the boundaries of a marriage where one person works constantly and the other person feels invisible." "Arlena," my sister Penny said softly, glancing meaningfully at the children. "No, I'm tired of tiptoeing around this." The wine was making me bold, reckless. Everyone wants to make me the villain for having a friend who actually cares about me, who actually makes time for me, who actually sees me as a person worth talking to. "Nobody's making you a villain," Ethan said carefully. "We're just concerned." "Concerned about what? That I might actually be happy for once?" "Happy?" Callum's voice was quiet but intense. "Is that what this is about? Your happiness?" Among other things, yes. And what about my happiness? What about our children's happiness? I gestured around the table with my wineglass. The kids are fine. And as for your happiness, when was the last time you seemed happy about anything involving this family? I'm happy, Lily said in a small voice. Daddy, are you not happy? The innocent question from our 4-year-old hit the table like a bomb. Callum's face softened as he looked at her. Of course I'm happy, sweetheart. Daddy's always happy when he's with you and Milo. What about with Mommy? Milo asked, his 7-year-old eyes too perceptive for his age. The adults at the table exchanged uncomfortable glances. This was spiraling out of control. Of course with Mommy too, Callum said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then why do you and Mommy always look sad when you talk to each other? Milo pressed. We don't... I started, then stopped, because he was right. When had Callum and I stopped looking happy to see each other? You know what? I said, standing up abruptly. I'm tired of everyone analyzing my life and my choices. I'm tired of being made to feel guilty for having a friend who treats me well. And I'm especially tired of being expected to choose between my husband and my best friend when my husband barely acts like he wants to be married to me anyway. The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret's face had gone pale. Penny was staring at me in shock, and my mother was opening and closing her mouth like a fish. Arlena, Callum said quietly, you're upset. Maybe we should... I'm not upset, I'm honest. For the first time in months, I'm being completely honest. I looked around the table at all their shocked faces. You want to know the truth? I'm not going to choose between Rowan and Callum. I shouldn't have to. A secure husband wouldn't ask me to give up my friendships, and good friends support each other's marriages. If neither of them can handle that, then maybe the problem isn't with me. Mommy, Lily's voice was small and scared. Why are you yelling? I looked down at my daughter's frightened face and felt a stab of guilt, but it was immediately overwhelmed by defensive anger. I'm not yelling, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups have to have difficult conversations. This isn't a conversation, Ethan said, his voice tight with disapproval. This is you justifying behavior that's hurting your family. My behavior? I laughed bitterly. What about Callum's behavior? What about working 60 hours a week and coming home too tired to have a real conversation with his wife? What about making me feel like a roommate instead of a partner? That's enough, Callum said, standing up. His voice was calm, but I could see the muscle in his jaw twitching. Kids, go upstairs and get ready for bed. Grandma Margaret will be up to help you in a minute. But we didn't finish dinner, Milo protested. It's okay, Margaret said gently, standing and taking each child by the hand. Let's go read a story instead. As the kids left with Margaret, the adults remaining at the table stared at each other in uncomfortable silence. Well, Denise said finally, I think everyone's emotions are running high tonight. Maybe we should all take a step back and... No, Callum said quietly. I think we've all heard exactly what we needed to hear. He walked out of the dining room without another word. I heard his footsteps on the stairs, then the sound of our bedroom door closing. Arlena, Penny said softly, what are you doing? I'm standing up for myself. For once in my life, I'm refusing to be made to feel guilty for being appreciated by someone. But at what cost? Ethan asked. Your marriage? Your kids' stability? My marriage was already broken, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I wondered if they were true, or if I was just trying to justify my actions. Was it? Penny asked. Or did you break it? I stared at my sister, feeling betrayed. I can't believe you're taking his side. I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm trying to understand how we got here. We got here because I finally found someone who values me, and everyone else is threatened by that. Or, Ethan said quietly, we got here because you're having an affair, and you're trying to make everyone else the villain, so you don't have to face what you're doing. The word affair hung in the air like an accusation. I felt my face burn with anger and shame. I'm not having an affair. Rowan and I are friends. Friends don't usually require their married friends to choose between them and their spouses, Penny observed. I never said Rowan asked me to choose. I said I wouldn't choose. There's a difference. Is there? Denise asked, and I was surprised to hear doubt in my mother's voice. She'd been my biggest supporter through all of this. I looked around the table at their faces, disappointed, concerned, judgmental. These people were supposed to be my family, supposed to support me, and instead, they were all ganging up on me just like Callum. You know what? I don't need this from any of you. I threw my napkin down on the table. If you can't understand that I deserve to have people in my life who care about me, then that's your problem. I walked out of the dining room, leaving them sitting there in stunned silence. As I climbed the stairs, I could hear the murmur of their voices, no doubt discussing what a terrible person I was, how I was destroying my family, how Callum deserved better. Maybe he did deserve better. Maybe we all did. But as I passed our bedroom and heard the shower running, I felt a pang of something that might have been regret. When had we gotten to this point? When had we stopped being a team and started being adversaries? My phone buzzed with a text from Rowan. Thinking about you. Hope your evening is going well. I stared at the message, remembering the way he'd kissed me, the way he made me feel desired and important. Then I thought about Lily's scared face, Milo's confused questions, the disappointment in Penny's eyes. For a moment I hesitated. Then I typed back, "It's been difficult. I'll call you later." His response was immediate. "I'm here for you, always." At least someone was. The morning after the disastrous dinner party, I woke up to an empty bed and the sound of Callum making breakfast downstairs. The events of the previous evening came flooding back, and I felt a mixture of embarrassment and defiant anger. When I entered the kitchen, the kids were eating cereal, while Callum packed their lunches with mechanical precision. He looked up when I walked in, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Good morning to you too. The kids have playdates today. They'll be gone from noon until 5. We'll talk then." It wasn't a request. I nodded, pouring myself coffee with hands that weren't quite steady. The hours until noon crawled by. I tried to keep busy with household tasks, but my mind kept wandering to the conversation ahead, and to Rowan, who had texted me twice asking if I was okay. When the kids left with their friends, Callum and I found ourselves alone in our living room, facing each other like adversaries rather than spouses. "Last night was unacceptable," he began, his voice calm but firm. "The way you spoke to our families, in front of our children." I was honest, I interrupted. For the first time in months, I was completely honest about how I feel. "You were cruel, and you were inappropriate." Inappropriate? For having feelings? For expressing them? For having an affair and then trying to make everyone else the villain when they call you on it. There it was again, that word. Affair. I'm not having an affair. "Aren't you?" He pulled out his phone and began reading. Text from Rowan yesterday at 11:47 p.m. "Can't stop thinking about our kiss. When can I see you again?" Your response. "Soon, I hope. I need you." My blood turned to ice. "How did you—" "I've been paying attention, Arlena. The late-night calls, the secretive texting, the way you light up when you talk about him and shut down when you talk about us. Did you really think I wouldn't notice?" I felt trapped, exposed. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is, because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my wife is in love with another man." The words hung between us. Was I in love with Rowan? I thought about the way my heart raced when I saw his name on my phone, the way I looked forward to seeing him more than I looked forward to coming home to my own family. "I don't know," I said finally. "Maybe. I don't know anymore." At least I was being honest. Callum's face crumpled slightly, as if he'd been hoping I would deny it. "Okay," he said after a long moment. "At least you're not lying anymore. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to end whatever this is with Rowan, completely. No more texting, no more calls, no more meetings. You're going to tell him that you're committed to working on your marriage. You can't just dictate. I'm not dictating. I'm setting boundaries for my marriage. If you want to stay married to me, If you want to keep our family together, this is what needs to happen. And if I don't agree?" His jaw tightened. "Then we'll have a different conversation, one that involves lawyers." The threat hit me like a physical blow. "You'd divorce me? Over a friendship? Over an affair? Over the fact that you just told me you might be in love with another man? Over the way you've been treating me and our children while you pursue this relationship?" "I haven't done anything to the children." "Haven't you? Milo's been asking me why Mommy doesn't seem happy anymore. Lily's been having nightmares. They can feel the tension, Arlena. They know something's wrong." Guilt twisted in my stomach, but I pushed it away. "The tension is because you've been cold and distant for months. I've been distant because my wife has been having an emotional affair, because every time I try to connect with you, you're texting him or thinking about him or comparing me to him. So this is my fault. All of it. The affair is your fault. The lying is your fault. The way you humiliated our families last night is your fault." His voice was rising now, his calm facade cracking. "I take responsibility for my part in the problems in our marriage, but I will not take responsibility for your choices." "My choices?" I stood up, anger flaring. "What about your choice to work constantly? Your choice to ignore me for months? Your choice to make me feel like I'm invisible in my own home? So you decided to find validation somewhere else instead of talking to me about it. Instead of trying to fix our problems, you ran straight into another man's arms. He listens to me. He cares about my feelings. He makes me feel like I matter. And I don't?" The question was quiet, vulnerable, and it stopped me short. When was the last time I'd given Callum a chance to make me feel like I mattered? When was the last time I'd approached him with my problems instead of taking them to Rowan? I started, then stopped. "It's complicated." "No, it's not. You made a choice. You chose him over me, over us, over our family. And now I'm asking you to choose again. For the last time. I shouldn't have to choose. If you trusted me." "Trust?" He laughed bitterly. "You've been lying to me for months. You're emotionally and physically involved with another man. You just told me you might be in love with him. What exactly should I be trusting? That I would never leave you and the kids. That no matter what I feel for Rowan, my family comes first. Does it? Because your actions suggest otherwise." I felt cornered, desperate. "You're being unreasonable. Rowan is my best friend. I can't just cut him out of my life because you're insecure." "Insecure?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "My wife is having an affair, and I'm insecure for wanting it to end." "It's not an affair. You kissed him. You told him you need him. You're planning to see him again. You just admitted you might be in love with him. What would you call it?" I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. Because he was right, and we both knew it. "I need time to think," I said finally. "Time to think about what? About whether you want to stay married to me? About whether our children deserve to have their family destroyed so you can pursue your feelings for another man? That's not fair." "None of this is fair, Arlena, but it's where we are." He stood up, his expression resolving into something cold and determined. "You have until the end of the week to decide. Either you end things with Rowan completely and commit to working on our marriage, or I file for divorce. You're giving me an ultimatum. I'm giving you a choice. The same choice you should have made months ago." He walked toward the stairs, then paused. "And Arlena, if you choose divorce, I'll be seeking full custody. I have documentation of your affair, evidence of your lies, witnesses to your behavior. I will not let you destroy our children's lives the way you've destroyed our marriage." As he disappeared upstairs, I sank back onto the couch, my mind reeling. Full custody? He couldn't be serious. Could he? My phone buzzed. A text from Rowan. "Haven't heard from you today. Everything okay?" I stared at the message, Callum's ultimatum echoing in my head. End things with Rowan completely, or lose my marriage and possibly my children. But how could I give up the one person who made me feel alive? How could I go back to feeling invisible and unappreciated? I typed back, "Need to see you. Can you meet me tonight?" His response was immediate. "Of course, my place at 8. That night I texted Rowan, "I'm coming over. We need to talk." I told myself it was just to explain, to figure things out, not to choose him over my family. But the lie tasted bitter. I never made it. Downstairs at 7:30, dressed to leave, I found Callum at the dining table, manila folder open, phone recording. "Going somewhere?" "Penny, coffee." The automatic lie slipped out. "No." "Rowan." He gestured to the chair. "Sit. One final conversation." His calm unnerved me more than anger ever had. I stayed standing. "What's in the folder?" "Evidence." He spread it out. Phone records, 347 texts, calls in 2 months, screenshots, photos from brunch where I leaned too close, credit card charges for lingerie, and perfume on days I saw friends. "You've been spying, protecting our children." He played an audio, my voice confessing love to Rowan. "Last Thursday, I followed you to his apartment." My legs gave out. I sat. "Callum, please." "You had your chance to choose us." He pulled divorce papers. "Filed this afternoon, seeking primary custody, adultery, emotional abandonment, parental alienation." The room spun. "You can't take my kids." "I'm giving them stability. You prioritized him over them." I begged, counseling, cutting Rowan off. He shook his head. "You chose yourself. Now live with it." He left with the children for his mothers. Alone, I called Rowan. "It's over. Callum knows. He's filing, taking the kids." Silence. Then, "This is complicated. Maybe time apart while you sort the legal stuff." "You're abandoning me." "Don't put this on me. You chose this." The line went dead. The next morning, papers arrived. Callum's note. "You chose yourself over both of us. Hope it was worth it." I sat in the empty house, surrounded by evidence of my betrayal. Rowan had already moved on. My children were gone. My marriage destroyed. I'd wanted to feel alive. Instead, I was utterly alone, exactly what I deserved.